Hello students, today will we discuss about critical appreciation of a pair of mustaches. देखिए जो कि एक शॉर्ट स्टोरी है, ये मुल्कराज आनंद ने लिखी है. ओके, there are various kinds of mustaches worn in my country to mark the boundaries between the various classes of people. Outsiders may think it stupid to lay down or rather to raise lines of demarcation of this kind. But we are notorious in the whole world for striking to our core. Old conventions, pride and prejudice, even as the Chinese or the Americans or for the matter the English. And at any rate, some people may think it easier and more convenient to wear permanent boundary lines like mustaches, which only need a smear of grease to keep them bright and shiny, rather than to wear frock coats, striped trousers, and the top hats which constantly need to be laundered and dry cleaned, and the maintenance of which is already leading the bankruptcy of European ruling classes. With them clothes make the man. What to us mustaches make the man, so we prefer the various styles of mustaches to mark the differences between the classes. And very unique and poetical symbols. There are two. For instance, there is the famous lion mustache, the fearsome upstanding symbol of that great order of resplendent Rajas, Maharajas, Nawabs, and English army generals who are so well known of their devotion to the King Emperor. Then there is the or are so well known for their devotion to the King Emperor tiger mustache, uncanny several pointed mustache worn by the unwinding, unchanging survivors from the ranks of the feudal gentry who have nothing left but the pride in their greatness and a few mementos of past glory. Scrolls of honor granted by the former emperors, a few gold trinkets, heirlooms, and bits of land. Next, there is the goat mustache, a rather unsure brand worn by the novice, the new commercial, and the shopkeeper class somehow don't belong. An indifferent, thin little line of mustache worn so that its tips can be turned up or down as the occasion demands, a show of to power to some coolie or humility to a prosperous client. There is the Charlie Chaplin mustache worn by the lower middle class, by clerks and professional men, a kind of half and half affair deliberately designed as a compromise between the traditional full mustache and the clean shaven curtain cut of the sahibs and the barristers. Because the savos are not sure whether the sahib like them to keep mustaches at all, there is the sheep mustache of the coolies and the lower orders, the mouse mustache of the peasant, and so on. In fact, there are endless styles of mustaches, all appropriate to the wearers and indicative of the various orders as rigorously alert to as if they had all been patented by the government of India or had been sanctioned by the special appointment with His Majesty the King or Her Majesty the Queen. And any poaching on the style of one class by members of another is interpreted by the certain authorities as being indicative of an increasing jealousy with which each class is guarding its rights and privileges in regard to the mark of the mustachios. Of course, the analysis of the expert is rather too abstract, and not all the murders can be traced to this cause. But certainly it is true that the preferences of the people in regard of their mustachios are causing a lot of trouble in our parts. For instance, there was a rumpus in my own village the other day about a pair of mustachios. It so happened that Seth Ramanand, the grocer and moneylender, who had been doing well out of the recent fall in the price of wheat by buying up whole crops cheap from the hard-pressed peasants and then selling grain at higher prices, took it into his head to twist the goat mustache, integral to his order and position in society, at the tips so that it looked nearly like a tiger mustache. Nobody seemed to mind very much because most of the mouse mustached peasants in our village are beholden of the one either because land besides the Seth had been careful enough to twist his mustache so that it seemed nearly, though not quite, like a tiger mustache. But their lives in the vicinity of our village in an old Mughal style house, a Mussalman named Khan Azam Khan, who claims descent from court of the great Mughals. Khan Azam Khan, a tall middle-aged man, is a handsome and dignified person, and he wears a tiger mustache and remains adorned with the faded remnants of a gold brocaded waistcoat, though he has not even a patch of land left. Khan Azam Khan happened to go to the moneylender's shop to pawn his wife's gold nose ring one morning, and he noticed the upturning tendency of that hair on Ramanand's upper lip, which made the one's goat mustache look almost like his own tiger mustache. Since when have the lentil-eating shopkeepers become noblemen? He asked surely, even before he had shown the nose ring to the Vanya. I don't know what I mean, seed of a donkey, said the Khan. Look at the way you have turned the tips of our mustache upwards. It almost looked like my tiger mustache. Turn the tips down to the style proper to the god that you are. Fancy the ears of the Venice nowadays. A pair of mustaches is a very humorous but satirical presentation of Khan Azam Khan, who professes himself to be belonging to old royalty, though he has not left anything with him now. In the beginning of the story, Anand are the representation of different classes of society. Quite contrasted to the chief charm of the story is that Azam Khan has given all his belongings, pots and goods and chattels, and even his house to the moneylender. What feels glory that he has saved the honor of his tiger mustachios? The story writer makes a witty satire at the end in his remark, he had become a pauper. And they laughed to see the Khan give a special twist to his mustache as he walked away, maintaining the valiant uprightness of the symbol of his ancient and noble family. Though he had become a pauper. Okay, Mulkraj Anand is a most reputed but most controversial novelist and short story writer in Indo-Anglian literature. He was born in Peshawar and his parents were simple people. He went to England for higher education, which exercised a certain formative influence upon his mind. He had observed Indian folk life very closely and was profoundly hurt by casteism, exploitations, and dishonesty in the society. In later years of his life, he could not gain much except writing a few books and autobiographical works like Seven Summers. He dedicated himself to service and education of the poor lot. He was moved to see the injustice with the poor and downtrodden class who were leading their life worse even than the animals.